Badass of the Week is an iHeartRadio podcast produced by High Five Content.
A fleet of 300 war canoes cuts through the waves, spurred by the beats of Hawaiian drums. At the prow of the lead warship stands King Kamehameha the Great. He wears a golden helmet and a cloak made of red feathers, which he took from the body of a rival chieftain he defeated in battle. He has killed his enemies, clogged rivers with their bodies, sacrificed them to the war god, and possibly even consumed their hearts as part of the ritual. He fought Royal Marines, performed amazing feats of strength, and battled the warriors of Maui. And now, at the head of his army, battle-hardened Hawaiian warriors armed with spears, shields, and even a few muskets and cannons. Kamehameha will fulfill the destiny foretold by the strange phenomena that have followed him through his life. He will unify Hawaii and rule it as a single kingdom for the first time in its history.
Hello, and welcome back to Badass of the Week. My name is Ben Thompson, and with me as always is my co-host, Dr. Pat Larish. Pat, how's it going?
It's going great. Excited to talk about King Kamehameha and Hawaii today. What about you, Ben? How are things going with you?
Yeah, so I have kind of a crazy story that happened to me a couple days ago. It was Saturday, right? I was sitting in my front office in my house, and I'm working on something. Oh, I was about to play a game online, and I joined up with my friend Matt, and we logged in, and we were about to start. But then I hear this noise outside, and I look outside, and it's this woman yelling, "Help, help." And she's walking. She's got one dog in her arm, and she's walking another dog, and there's like two dogs attacking her, like a big black lab and like a gray pit bull. Are like jumping at her. They're like pulling at her clothes. They're trying to bite the dog that she's holding in her hand. She's yelling like, "Help, help." So I run to my front door. I'm in my pajamas, right? I run to my front door. I open the door. I was like, "Get in here, hurry up." Cause she's like right in my yard, like walking right past my yard. I was like, "Hurry, come here." Right. So she comes and gets into my house, and I get the door shut before the dogs were trying to come in. Right. And I get the door shut before the dogs get into the house. And I run over and I close my window. My office window was open. And then I was like, I closed it up, and then I heard like a bang because my cat had gone. My cat likes to go in and out through that window, and she had gone out, and these dogs were like chasing her, and she was trying to jump in, and she couldn't because I had just shut the window on her, and she bounces off the window, and she takes off, and the two dogs take off after her, and I'm like, oh man, what am I gonna do? So, I mean, my mom is home and the baby is home, my 3-year-old. And now I have this strange woman in my house. She was, this very pleasant young woman with these two dogs that I don't know. And they're barking and going crazy because they're all stressed out because they've just been attacked. And now I've got these two wild dogs running around my yard. I don't know. I've never seen these dogs before. I don't know what's going on. So,
and you have no idea where your cat is at the moment.
Right. And so I go out there and I grab this putting iron, like this golf club, and I run outside to try to rescue her because I'm like, I don't know. And so I go outside and I run around the back of the house, and they've got her kind of cornered. And so I get up there, and they're two dogs, like they're kind of aggressive, but so I try to like poke at them with the golf club, like, hey, get away, right? And then that doesn't work. They're still kind of going after her. And so then I bop one of them on top of the head, not hard, right? Just kind of a little bop.
Yeah, just like a
just like, hey, stop it, right? Like you bad boy, right? Don't do that, bad dog.
Yeah, just to get their attention and say,
like I'm not joking around. I bopped him.
And we're setting boundaries.
Yes, and they came after me. They start snapping at me and biting at me and like trying to get to me. I like jump out of the way. They're going after the cat. They're going after me. Like I can't get between the cat and them because they're like aggressive as a giant pit bull and like this big black lab. And so I start swinging the golf club at them. I'm like hitting them pretty hard with the golf club, but that doesn't stop them. It just makes them more angry. And so then at some point I grabbed the cat, and I got the cat in one arm, and I'm trying to get back to my front door, and they're like chasing me. So I'm kind of like walking backwards. And like anytime one of them gets too close or like kind of bites at me, I hit it with the club, like not hard, but like I kind of whack it.
You bop it.
Give it a good whack, right? To kind of keep it away. Yeah. And so then I have to kind of get back into my front door, and I'm holding the cat, and the cat is freaking out and biting the hell out of me, right? So I got bit a bunch of times on my hand from where I was carrying her, but I couldn't drop her because I'd lose her. She'd take off and I wouldn't see her. She's bleeding all over the place, right? And so I'm fighting these dogs, and I just like, I don't know. Did you see Beauty and the Beast? I watched that recently with little Brian, and like I feel like the beast fighting all the wolves and stuff in the wilderness. I was like, I could die if this pit bull gets his jaws on me. Like I'm in real serious trouble, right? And so anyway, I'm backing up the stairs to my front door, and I'm fighting these dogs. My mom comes out. She's yelling at them to go away. They're not listening. They're like on a rampage, right? And I finally get inside the house. Well, I pushed the cat in through the window because I'd reopened it. And the dogs started going in the window, so I'm beating on them with the golf club, trying to keep them away. My mom runs inside, gets that window closed. I run inside. We get the door shut. Okay, cool. They're outside. They take off. They run down the hill. I call the cops. The animal control comes. Animal control eventually picks the dogs up. But my cat was kind of walking with a limp. She was bleeding all over the place. Oh my goodness, because she broke a bunch of claws fighting them. It turned out everything is okay. The end story of I'll say now, everything's okay.
Well, obviously you're here telling us the story.
Yes.
But how's your cat doing? Did you get tested for rabies?
The young girl was a dog walker, so she wasn't even my neighbor. She was like helping my neighbor out to walk their dogs while they were out of town, and she was okay. But I was like, man, welcome to the neighborhood. This is new for us, right? Like I'm in suburban Seattle. I really wasn't expecting to be attacked by a pack of wild dogs in my front yard. So she was okay. When I was watching it looked like she was getting bit, and it looked like her dogs were getting bit, but there was nothing. So none of them were bleeding or hurt or anything. So that was great. My cat was bleeding a bunch, and she had a little limp, but she didn't have any puncture wounds from the dogs. And the blood was from, she had broken nails trying to fight them. She'd broken a bunch of all of her front claws were broken. And one of her back claws was bleeding from trying to climb up the wall, basically to escape them, I think.
Because you're a cat and climbing the walls.
Right. She was trying to jump up, climb the walls, trying everything she could to get out of the way, right? She was fighting him really hard.
Her best,
Just a little cat, and these were big dogs. And and then I had a bunch of puncture wounds on my hand from getting bit by the cat, but luckily I didn't get bit by the dogs, so that was nice, right? Because they keep the cat up on her shots. And cats, like if you're a cat owner, you kind of expect to get scratched from time to time. I mean, these were pretty serious bites because the cat was like panicking and freaking out. So like I didn't really feel anything because I had all the adrenaline going from being in the middle of it. But when I picked her up and she just was like in a panic, right? And she bit me real good. And like, I didn't feel it, but I was like, I thought at the moment, like, that's bad. That was deep. I thought like, this is gonna hurt tomorrow. It's not hurting right now, but that was a big one. And then my bites got infected, so my finger got real infected. Like yesterday, this was from 2 days ago, and then yesterday I had to go to the doctor and go to urgent care and get antibiotics and all this stuff to like deal with the infection.
Did you tell them the story?
Yeah. They were like, you were like the hero of the story. I was like, I don't know, man. It didn't feel very heroic to hit a dog with a golf club. It felt really awful, actually. I really didn't enjoy it.
Well,
Really was.
You were defending your cat.
Yeah, it felt pretty terrible.
But whoa.
Yeah, and one of these dogs was wearing a collar. It was wearing a collar with a tag. So it was somebody's pet. And the animal control guy was like, this is the second time this month these dogs have gotten out of their home and attacked a pet. He's like, luckily they haven't attacked humans yet. I was like, he attacked me like pretty severe, like pretty seriously, and that dog walker. Like they attacked both of us pretty good. Craziness.
Wow, this is
irresponsible pet ownership. This is irresponsible pet ownership. I was not expecting that on a Saturday morning in my pajamas.
Yeah.
So I guess just like I was determined to rescue my cat, that's a quality that we're going to see from the person we're talking about today, King Kamehameha the Great of Hawaii. Though I'd say maybe his determination was a little greater than mine. I was just trying to rescue my cat, and he was trying to unify all of Hawaii under one kingdom.
A little different, yes, but both praiseworthy in their own ways.
Perhaps, but also the most powerful special attack in Dragon Ball Z is not named after me. So we're going to talk about Kamehameha instead. When we come back from this quick break, we are going to dive into some really cool Hawaiian history. So stick with us. All right, welcome back to the show. We are going to be talking about King Kamehameha. And Pat, his early life kind of reads like a little bit like mythology, huh?
It does, yeah. Yeah. His birth name was Paea, and we don't know his birth date for sure, but there were stories, legends linking his birth to storms and strange lights and maybe a bright star in the sky. And given what was going on in the sky at the time, maybe this means he was born in November of 1758, because that's when Halley's Comet was passing through the neighborhood.
Yeah, so there's like a range of when he was born, but yeah, there's all these cool myths about like, oh, he was prophesized, and there was bright lights in the sky to show the coming of the unifier of Hawaii, and so yeah, this is what we're talking about with the mythological stuff. It's so we'd like to think his birth month was November 1758, because that would...
It's a good story. Yeah, it works. Poetically, it works. Spiritually, it works. Cosmically, it works. Yes. And he was probably from a minor branch of the nobility. Various clans were warring with one another at this point, and he was
tied in with one of them, probably, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So our boy was hidden away for the first 5 years of his life to keep him safe. And he returned to the town of Kailua at age 5. And when he returns, I mean, he's 5 years old, so he's probably brought back by some grown-up or other. They call him Kamehameha, which means the lonely one, because he was, kept apart, isolated.
Yeah, but that's cool, though. That's like what you said was mythological, right? He's born under these auspicious signs, the prophecy of the unifier, and under this sign, and he's born during Halley's Comet, which was not a
cool
thing. Yeah, which is cool, and was just bright streak in the sky for several nights or however long the comet lasts. They didn't, the people there didn't understand it. Like, oh, this is crazy, cool. And then he's hidden away for 5 years and returns. And this is Kamehameha. He's the lonely one. And so then he arrives in Kailua. This is the big island of Hawaii.
Yeah. He's not 5 years old forever. He grows up, and when he's big enough, he says, I'd like to try my hand at power. I'd like to try my hand at flipping the Naha stone. Now, what is the Naha stone? Ben, have you seen the Naha stone? You've been to Hawaii. I haven't.
Okay, I've been to Hawaii a bunch, but I have never seen the Naha stone. I'm going to guess it's a big rock.
I think you're right.
If flipping it is a big deal, then this seems like it's a big rock.
Yeah, this is not a pebble you pick up from the beach. This is
the Gordian rock.
Yes, it's the Gordian rock. It weighs like 3 tons.
Oh, God. So
it's
like
big.
A truck.
It's huge. It's huge. Yeah. And flipping the Naha stone confers mana, which is like spiritual power, spiritual authority, And Kamehameha, he was from maybe a noble family, but he wasn't from like the royal bloodline. And the people who were born into the royal bloodline, they were entitled to flip the Naha stone and receive mana. But he wanted to try anyway. And the priestess says, okay, I'm going to make a prophecy. She says that flipping the Naha stone would, quote, lift off the strands that bind the islands. I'm trying to figure out what I would think if I just received this prophecy without any context. What do you think this image means? Lift off the strands that bind the islands.
I mean, Okay, so we've got this big rock. I just Googled things that weigh 3 tons, and
Okay, yeah.
I got a rhinoceros, like a fully grown adult male white rhinoceros, and in a Ford F-250 pickup truck. So that's the weight that we are trying to flip of a rock. And this is not like even the F-250 would be easier because it's already kind of lifted off the ground a little bit, so you get your hands under it. This is like you gotta get your fingers under the rock. So
And the rhinoceros might have its own opinions.
right, you can cow tip a rhino maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so flipping the stone would lift off the strands that bind the islands. It makes me think of like a web, what I'm picturing is kind of this web of energy that's all tied to this stone that binds out to all of the other islands. And if you flip it, you break that all, and now you've kind of freed it all to, I don't know, pulling the stopper out of a bathtub.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I have to confess, I don't understand this image, but you know what? It's a prophecy,
Yes.
right? And
he flips
this will
it?
become relevant later. He flips it.
Ah.
He does. Yeah. Yes. I'm not sure how, but he flips it.
Brute force, I think. But this is kind of the sword and the stone for Hawaiian kings, at least according to the prophecy.
So Kamehameha, he's got other skills. He was hidden away for 5 years, but he received a good education. He was trained in various games. He was trained in warfare. He was trained in oral history. And I have to say, from reading around what various scholars have written about Hawaiian culture, the oral history of Hawaii goes back a long time, and it's very rich, and it's also very coherent. So my guess is that young Kamehameha would have had a lot of oral history to learn.
Yeah.
He also learned navigation, which is no small feat. He learned religious ceremonies, which were a big deal. And, he was educated by his father, by his uncle, who was the chief of the region. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's kind of this pretty successful guy. He's the son of a minor chief. He gains the attention of the chief of the region because he's kind of big, strong. He flips the Naha stone, even though he wasn't even supposed to try. He wasn't high enough station to try, but he did it, and he flipped it, which is cool. Things get really interesting in Hawaii in January of 1778 when Captain James Cook arrives on the Big Island with his fleet that is the HMS Discovery and the HMS Resolution.
These are good abstract concepts.
Yes, love it.
Yes.
He being the first person to discover Hawaii, he names the place the Sandwich Islands after his
British
friend.
perspective, at least.
Yes, he discovered it, and nobody else had been there before him except for all of those people that were currently living there.
Yeah.
But he claimed naming rights on it, and he named it the Sandwich Islands after his friend, the Earl of Sandwich.
Sandwich.
We don't call it that anymore because it actually turns out people already lived there and they already had a name for the place. They called it Hawaii, and so that's what we call it now. And Kamehameha is like I said, he's kind of gained the attention of the chief of the region. I will attempt to pronounce the chief's name. It's Kalaniʻopoʻu, and he's kind of the main chief of the Big Island, and he is brought aboard the HMS Discovery to meet with Captain Cook when Captain Cook lands there. Cook's been he's going to circumnavigate the globe. He's this very famous, very successful British explorer. We'll probably talk about him on the show at some point. He probably deserves a full episode, but he's not gonna be in this story for very long because he boards the chief of Hawaii boards the Discovery, and Kamehameha is with him, so he's invited to board that ship. The crew of the Discovery actually write about him. They describe him as a young warrior. They say he was brave. He was scarred from battle already, from the warring clans you were talking about, or just duels and stuff like that. So he was battle scarred. He was tall and strong. He was utterly fearless, and he, quote, moved in an aura of violence, which I feel like is extremely descriptive.
He moved in an aura of violence.
Yes. He was a big, strong Hawaiian dude who walked with determination. That's how I read that.
Moved in an aura of violence.
Yes.
Don't mess with this guy.
Do not mess with this guy, as we will see as the story progresses.
So what happened in this encounter?
Well, so you run into this thing that happens occasionally with British people arriving and or explorers, European explorers arriving in the New Worlds. And it's basically like space aliens have come down with all this advanced technology, right? And it's just they've got stuff that the people of Hawaii have never seen before, and they want to trade for it. So Cook and his guys are trading iron, especially like just even like nails, anything they can, any kind of iron is really interesting to the people of Hawaii, and they can use it for all kinds of different things. But Cook's guys, they kind of take advantage of the Hawaiian aloha spirit. They kind of try to convince the Hawaiians that they're gods and that they're foreign heroes and that you should give us all this stuff. And they're trading trinkets for really nice things. And, it's just, they've kind of been doing this along the way. And
have a shtick.
And at some point, the Hawaiians, they get sick of it. And, a couple of Cook's guys get sick and die. And the Hawaiians are like, you're not gods. You can die. You're not immortal. What are you talking about?
So they practice critical thinking.
Yes. And so eventually the tide turns against Cook and he's like, I got to get out of here. So he gets on this boat and he starts to sail away. But there's this storm that snaps one of the masts of Discovery. So he's got to turn back and put back into port. He left and he was gone for like a couple of days and he has to come back. And
he has to come back to the people he kind of
taking advantage of.
Screwed over. Okay. Yeah.
And the Hawaiians greet him by throwing rocks at his boat as he pulls into the harbor.
I mean, I get where they're coming from.
I read a journal from one of the guys that was on the boat, and he was like, we didn't want to go back there any more than they wanted to have us back there. Like it was mutual. And so there's because they were there for a year. So Cook and his guys were there for a year. And by the end of it, it was like a house guest that you're just like, you got to go, man. You got to get out of here. And he finally leaves and he's like, actually, can I just crash here for another 2 weeks? No, get out of here. That was the vibe here, and the Hawaiians threw rocks at him. There's a little bit of a struggle, and the Hawaiians they steal one of Cook's boats, one of the small boats on Discovery, and Cook is like, I got to get control of the situation. So he takes a crew of Royal Marines and he goes ashore at night and he kidnaps one of these chiefs of the Hawaiians at gunpoint. And is like, you are my hostage. You're coming back to the boat with me. And he starts carrying.
Why does he think this is a good idea? Okay, I would have made different choices, but I wasn't there. Okay.
This is kind of colonial diplomacy here. Like, I'm going to kill your chief if you don't do this thing that I need. Yeah. And so the chief's wife runs out and wakes everybody up, and the Hawaiians get together and they go attack Cook before they go to rescue their chief, right? The British open fire, but the Hawaiians attack and overpower them. And there are, including some reports believe that Kamehameha was part of this counterattack. He would have been like a young war leader. If there was a fight, he was going to be there. So there are reports that like there's good indication that he was part of it and that he was, kind of, if nothing, like a leader of this attack. And the British opened fire, but the Hawaiians, they haven't really seen guns before. They're being shot at with guns. And to a lot of people who had never seen guns before, cannon fire, musket fire is scary and you run away, right? This is a stick that shoots fire.
It's scary even if you know what it is.
Right, exactly. You don't see the bullet, right? It creates fire, creates a loud noise, and somebody dies, right? This is scary.
Bam.
But that does not happen. They attack these Marines. They kill a bunch of Marines. They kill Captain Cook. They cut him up and they eat his heart.
Oh.
Yeah.
Bum, bum.
Yeah.
Womp, womp.
Yeah. Captain cooked. Too soon.
Captain. Oh. I mean, come on. It's 2 centuries ago.
So, okay. Cook's guys leave and a few years pass. Kamehameha rises up through the ranks. The chief, Kalaniʻopuʻu, he dies, passes power off to his son, who is the natural inheritor. But Kamehameha is
So
given,
this would be Kamehameha's cousin.
he's sort of, I think, a pretty distant cousin, though. Yeah, like
Okay, yeah,
it's not
yeah.
like his dad's brother. It's like a distant cousin through some big family. You know how that was the kind of the so big family. His cousin Kiwa'alo, he is going to be the new chief. But Kamehameha, because he's been such a great warrior and a hero to his people, he is given a prominent position where he is going to be the keeper of the idol of war. So it's this religious position where there's an idol for the war god, and he is the keeper of it. And he's granted...
He's the keeper of the idol of war. That sounds pretty important.
It's pretty badass, right? And he's also given rule over a smaller district near the area of Kona. So...
Wait, I've had coffee from there, right?
Yes. There's a great brewery there, and there is great coffee there. Okay. So Kamehameha is kind of this minor chief. He's gained power. He's got this religious position. And there's this weird story that I'm not going to get into too much, that the half brother of the new chief didn't get much, got less than Kamehameha, and was mad about it because this kid was the direct son of the former chief. He didn't get this little area or this religious position, but Kamehameha, who was more distant, did.
And in Hawaiian tradition at this point, you do pretty much expect things to pass down to the most direct descendant.
Right. As with all, a lot of this stuff, right? All kingdoms kind of operate like this, right? When the chief died, his eldest son became chief. The second son got nothing, and Kamehameha got some stuff. So the second son, his name is Keoa, he gets mad. He goes into Kona, he cuts down some sacred coconut trees, which was a huge offense. And he killed some of Kamehameha.
Don't cut down sacred trees.
No, that's a bad idea. Don't cut down sacred
bad idea.
anything.
Like, I get why he's upset, but you don't express it that way. You don't cut down sacred trees.
Use your words,
Yeah. Or cut down like non-sacred trees. I don't know. But he must have been upset. Yeah.
He was pretty upset. He goes into Kamehameha's land, he cuts down some sacred coconut trees, and he kills some of Kamehameha's guys, which is actually probably worse than cutting down the trees.
Yeah.
The guys that are wounded or captured of Kamehameha's guys, he gives them to his brother, Kiwa'alo, as sacrifices. And Kiwa'alo sacrifices them.
Like not as like prisoners of war, but like sacrifices.
As human sacrifice, yeah. And so Kiwa'alo sacrifices them. And Kamehameha now has two enemies, right? Like, okay, this one guy got mad and cut down some coconut trees and messed with a few of my guys. But like now the big chief, he is going to sacrifice my guys? I don't think so. So he needs to respond. And we have a little bit of a succession war on our hands here. A little bit of a civil war happening on the Big Island. Kamehameha organizes his guys. He personally leads the attack. The battle is called the Battle of Mokuohai. Kiwa'alo, during the fight, he's hit with a sling, knocked down, and then has his throat slit with a shark-toothed dagger, which is a dagger made out of serrated shark's teeth, which is fun.
Yeah.
Just badass.
So, yeah. So sharks are not just killing prey in the ocean. They're also apparently killing prey on land.
Killing chiefs, yes. And Kamehameha wins that battle. His rival is defeated, has his neck cut with a shark-toothed dagger. And Kamehameha takes Kiwa'alo's red feather cloak, which is this big cloak of red feathers. You're going to see him in it anytime you see any kind of art of him.
Yeah, and this is a big deal. This is the Ahu'ula, and this cloak confers sacred protection. This cloak is made from the feathers of the mamo bird, which is now extinct, okay. So Ben, as you said, if you look up King Kamehameha, you'll see him in this beautiful, vividly colored cloak. Mm-hmm. And that's the sort of thing we're talking about. Yeah.
That's what he's wearing. He's a big, giant dude usually wearing gold armor or gold helmet and wearing this big, giant, red feathered cloak that is made from this sacred bird that doesn't exist anymore. Okay. Yeah. So in 1782, Kamehameha becomes the chief of Hawaii, the biggest chief. He doesn't have the whole island. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but he's got most of the island under his control. And that's going pretty well for him. But a few years later, in 1790, there's going to be another expedition arriving in Hawaii that is going to change Kamehameha's life again. Okay, so 2 American ships arrive on the Big Island in 1790. One is called the Fair American, and one is called the Eleanora. They're there to trade. Captain Cook's guys have put Hawaii on a map. They've charted it. There's people here. They've got cool stuff to trade. So the Eleanora and the Fair American stopped there in 1790 to trade. Things are going okay, but at some point, the captain of the Eleanora beats up one of these minor Hawaiian chiefs. It's Kamehameha's uncle, but again, distant uncle.
Uncle might be defined, broadly.
He's trying to trade with the captain of the Eleanora, and the captain of the Eleanora gets mad about something and starts hitting him with a rope and drives him off.
No.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
All right. So the chief and his guys, they retaliate by stealing a ship from the Eleanora, which is, if you'll remember, that's what they did to Captain Cook also. Problem here is that the ship actually had a guy on it. They didn't know it when they stole it, but the ship actually had a crew member from the Eleanora on there, and they end up killing him.
Ooh. Okay.
The Eleanora gets angry, and they respond by sailing into the port where they've been trading with the Hawaiians, and they signal the call for like, hey, come on out and trade. The Hawaiians come out onto the beach to trade with them, and they open fire with cannons and muskets and just massacre. Like something like 80 people died. They just like baited them right out. And once they were all men, women, children, it was horrible. Then they sail away. The other ship in this flotilla, though, is the Fair American, and the Fair American puts into port nearby not this long after that. They haven't been communicating with the Eleanor. They don't really know what's going on. But Kamehameha's uncle remembers and his people, they remember. So when the Fair American shows up, Kamehameha's uncle and those guys from that town, the surviving people from that town, they row their war canoes out there to the Fair American, board it, and kill everybody except for one guy. And the crew was like 10 guys, but they're all dead, right? And one of them lives, and Kamehameha intervenes and is like, no, don't kill this guy, right? Okay.
Huh. Why not? Let's see where he's going with this.
Yes. So the Eleanora has put in somewhere else on the island, but just like with Cook, just like with the Fair American, things are getting a little too hot, right? So the boatswain of the Eleanora goes ashore to do something. I'm not sure what. But while he's on shore, the Eleanora leaves without him. They're like he might get captured before, or he just gets lost, or he loses track of time. But I think the Hawaiians might have grabbed him, and the Eleanor wasn't going to wait for him to come back. They're like, we're all going to die if we wait for this guy. We got to go. He's probably already dead anyway. Let's leave him. So the Eleanor takes off. So now at the end of this whole encounter, Kamehameha has an American ship. It's a schooner. It's not a huge ship, but it's a masted sailing ship. It's called the Fair American. He's got that. And he's got 2 prisoners with him. The captured boatswain from the Eleanor was a British guy named John Young. And the last survivor of the Fair American was a Welshman named Isaac Davis. And he's got these 2 guys as his prisoners.
John Young and Isaac Davis.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the Fair American.
And what is Kamehameha going to do with them?
I don't know. What would you do with this setup?
Yeah. Wow. If I were Kamehameha, and I mean, I guess if I had captured them, what would I do? Would I try to extract information from them? Would I sacrifice them if I'm in a culture that does human sacrifice?
And you are. They do human sacrifice still here.
Yeah. I don't know. So what did Kamehameha actually do?
He offered them positions as senior advisors in his realm.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Have you seen Shogun? It's great. But it's basically that.
Oh,
it's basically Hawaiian Shogun.
Okay.
He offers John Young and Isaac Davis senior positions of power in his... He's like, hey, I need to know everything. I know you guys are not gods. I know you're not space aliens. You guys have cool weapons and cool gear and cool stuff. And if you show me how to make it, I will make you nobility here. And if you tell me to get lost, I'm going to sacrifice you. So you got two choices here. Right?
Okay. I mean, like technically they've got choices, but this is something that Kamehameha does. This is his innovation.
Yes.
So John Young and Isaac Davis are like, okay. On the one hand, death. On the other hand, high status and a life in some islands that have a pretty nice climate.
Yeah, get to live in paradise, and they're completely immediately on board for all of it. They learn the language. They end up marrying Hawaiian women. They get positions of power in his realm.
Where would they meet British or Welsh women? Anyway, okay. I mean, like on the one hand, like duh. On the other hand, like okay, yeah, they're assimilating to the local culture, and
and in return they teach Kamehameha and his guys how to make gunpowder, because it turns out all of the components for making gunpowder can be grown or assembled on the big island of Hawaii. You have all the volcanoes, you have the sulfur, you have everything you need to make gunpowder, except for the recipe. So like, here's the recipe, here's how you make it, and now you can make gunpowder. They taught him how to shoot guns. The Fair American had 2 cannons on it, so they pull the cannons off. They're like, here's how you repair them. Here's how you maintain them. Here's how to shoot them. And if you need anything, we can take this ship and take some Hawaiian crew members, and we can sail. We're not that far from China. We can sail out to China and trade them for more guns and cannons and stuff. So they bring their space alien technology to King Kamehameha the Great, and he begins to formulate a plan that is, hey, maybe let's unify all of Hawaii. Let's do that. Let's break those threads. So we're going to take a really quick break. And when we come back, we are going to talk about how that goes for him.
So Kamehameha didn't invent the idea of unifying Hawaii. The islands were a common people. They had similar language, similar customs. And okay, yeah, there was a certain amount of infighting. We've heard about the king of Maui, blah, 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 And back in the 12th century or maybe 13th century, 20 generations ago, the king Kalaunuiohua had already attempted to unify the islands. So this is an idea that's out there. And remember that when Kamehameha lifted the Naha stone, all 3 tons of it, the priestess said, she prophesied, whoa, that's the noise of prophecy, whoa, lift off the strands that bind the islands. And at least now that's interpreted to mean reunification.
Right, because that's like the beauty of prophecies. It's like a horoscope where you can it's open to interpretation.
You can project whatever you want to onto it.
Yes.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So Kamehameha took things that already existed in Hawaiian culture, including a well-developed administrative system, a well-developed legal system, and he had all of the pieces. He was well positioned to recognize an opportunity when he saw one.
Yes. And so we should kind of define some geography here quickly, which is that there are a bunch of islands that make up Hawaii, but there are 6 big ones. The 6 major islands are Hawaii, which is the big island. Then there's Maui, there's Lanai, Molokai, Oahu, and Kauai. So there are 6 of them. And Kamehameha is in control of most of Hawaii at this point. His biggest rival, while he is attempting to unify all of these islands, and like you said, they have there's a common thread amongst all of them. They're very similar cultures. They share language. They share trade, and they have for generations and centuries. So there is kind of this common idea that we are a similar people, but each island is separate. And if you visit the different islands, they all have a very different vibe and a very different feel. And you can really get that impression traveling these places that you could see why they would think of themselves as being completely different from the other ones. Kamehameha's biggest rival when he takes over is the king of Maui. He's a guy named Kahekili II. he's another guy looking to unify Hawaii, but for himself instead of for Kamehameha. And
so unifying Hawaii is a thing that people are trying to do.
It's a thing that people are thinking about and trying to do, yes.
Yeah.
Kahekili is a pretty badass guy himself. So he is named after the Hawaiian god of thunder. And in the mythology, the Hawaiian god of thunder, Kahekili, he is, I think of Hel from Norse mythology. She is kind of bisected down the middle. So one half of her is black and one half of her is white. And not like the color black and the color white, right? Like not, so,
yeah, kind of like those characters on that one Star Trek original series episode. Anyway.
Yes, exactly. Like a yin yang, right? And so he's named after the god of thunder, the Hawaiian god of thunder. Kahekili is set up like that as well. And so the king of Maui, Kahekili II, he tattoos half of his body down the middle. So one half of his body is completely tattooed black, and the other half is his normal skin color.
Oh. That's a lot of tattooing.
Yeah, it sounds painful. It sounds intense. I bet it was crazy looking. This was a hardcore dude. He was serious. He was in charge of Maui, and he had taken over Oahu, which is the island that has Honolulu on it now. There was a town there.
Oh, yeah.
So he has Maui and Honolulu, and he's the first big obstacle for Kamehameha's push to be the king of all Hawaii. So in 1790, Kamehameha builds a fleet of warships, war canoes.
War canoes!
Yes, war canoes. I love the idea of war canoes. And it's great. And there's pictures of them, and there's models of them, and war canoes are awesome. We're going to talk about them a little bit more later. In 1790, Kamehameha sails his army over to Maui. The king of Maui is actually currently in Oahu. He's conquered Oahu. He's setting up stuff there. He's kind of living in Oahu. Kamehameha attacks Maui while the king's gone. He has this big army. He's got 1,200 guys with him. So Maui's son, Kalani Kupule, he leads the defense of the island while his father is gone. And they meet in 1790 at the Battle of Kipaiwi, which means the Battle of the Damned Waters of Iao.
Wait a minute. Battle of the Damned.
The Battle of the Damned Waters of Iao. Damned as in like it has a dam in the water.
Okay, like we're stopping up the water.
Right, yeah. Like the waters are...
not like a theological concept.
Yeah, no.
Not cursed.
No,
yeah,
okay.
Got it. Okay.
The Maui troops are defending this valley. They have some guys on top of the Iao Needle, which is now there's a really awesome park there. They call it the Iao Needle, but it was also known as the Phallus of Kanaloa. Kanaloa is the god of sailing in the ocean. It's a big, giant rock that looks like a phallus. And so
sticks up into the air.
Yeah,
okay.
Longer than it is wide.
Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, and so they're the soldiers of Maui. There's this big rock that's shaped like a dick, and these Maui guys are going to fight and defend it. And no, they put guys on top of there, but from the top of the Phallus of Kanaloa, you can see the entire island.
Oh yeah. So it's like strategically, it's a good place to be also, in addition to just being like, an interesting sight to see.
Yeah, it's very pretty. I went there. My father-in-law's boat is actually named Kanaloa, so he was very excited to see the Phallus of Kanaloa. But yeah, we went there, but it's like this really cool valley, but it's very beautiful. You can swim in the water there. It's amazing. But it also is a good place to defend because you can get guys up on the hills. You can get guys to block this kind of choke point. You've got an awesome lookout to see when the attackers are coming. And Kamehameha, he goes right up. I mean, it's the only way to attack these guys. You've got to attack quickly because the king of Maui is planning on returning with his guys. So you got to get in here and attack. But Kamehameha has a secret weapon, which is those two cannons that he took off the Fair American, which are manned, manned by John Young, one manned by Isaac Davis with a gun crew of well-trained Hawaiian warriors. the battle numbers are about the same, but they open with this cannonade. The defenders respond with arrows and javelins, and there's a fight. And so, these two cannons, they're not game changing. They get you. They open the door, right? They counteract the advantage of the defensive position, but at the end of the day, these guys are attacking each other with war clubs and serrated shark daggers and whatever other weapons they can get their hands on, spears.
Yeah.
And there's a big battle, and for 2 days they're fighting. And you know how I said those rivers were dammed up, and that didn't sound that badass? They were dammed up by the glut of dead bodies that land in the river. Ends up damming the river because there's so many dead bodies. The river, what's left of it on the other side of the dam is just red. It's just a river of blood, literally, because they've dammed the river and all this blood is coming down. So that's the battle.
It's damned, like blocked up, but also kind of damned, like cursed.
If you
also damned.
If you had been brought up with images of Christian hell, you would think you were there.
Whoa.
Yes. But Kamehameha wins it, and he drives off the Prince of Maui. He survives, but a lot of his soldiers are defeated, and Maui falls under Kamehameha's control. Kamehameha returns back to the Big Island, and do you remember Kiwa'alo, the distant cousin who had inherited and gotten his neck cut?
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's still got that second brother, that Kiowa, the guy who went nuts and cut the sacred coconut trees down and killed some of Kamehameha's guys. He's still out there. He didn't get killed in that first battle. And he is causing trouble while Kamehameha is out of town. So Kamehameha has to come back and deal with this guy. All right. He comes back. He defeats this guy in battle. And so Kiowa, he ends up fleeing into what is nowadays Volcano National Park. And the volcano blows up on him in 1790.
Oh!
And kills a bunch of his soldiers. And his soldiers' footprints are still embedded in ash there. So you can go see them. The footprints of his soldiers trying to move through this difficult terrain.
These are footprints from over 200 years ago.
Yeah, they're still there.
Whoa.
Yeah. But it takes out a lot of his guys. And
I bet.
Yeah. And then with those guys down, Kamehameha attacks, captures Kiowa. And remember how Kiowa sacrificed Kamehameha's guys to the gods? Mm-hmm. Well, Kamehameha sacrifices him to the gods.
Karma's a bear.
Yeah. So that's that for that. He is now the king of all of Hawaii and of Maui. The dude with half his body tattooed, the king of Maui, he's not just going to be like, oh, dang, you took my home island from me. That sucks. So in
he's not going to just roll over and suck it up.
No, he's not. He shows up in 1791 with a fleet. He's got war canoes, and Kamehameha meets him in a naval battle with his war canoes, some of which are now featuring Western style rigging and sails and things that haven't really been seen before in Hawaiian war canoes.
Advancements.
Yes.
Ooh,
and
okay.
I really wanted to look up what a war canoe was. I did a lot of research on war canoes because it just sounds so awesome. But it turns out it's like the term warship, right? Like there are all different shapes and sizes. Generally, like it had guys on it with swords and shields or spears and shields. But it can mean any number of, some of them were outriggers, some of them were like dugouts, some of them were bigger, some of them were humongous. So a canoe that contains warriors who can do war. Any canoe that is being used for war is a war canoe. Okay. There's not a standardization of them. Okay. Pat, I'm going to ask you to take a crack at the name of this battle. Kepuwaha'ulaula? Okay. I'll do the translation. It's the Battle of the Red-Mouthed Guns. Ooh. Yes. The Battle of the Red-Mouthed Guns. That's a pretty poetic and intense way of describing guns. Yes, because it's this big naval battle off the coast of the Big Island, Hawaii. Kamehameha and the Fair American and his war canoes sail out and they fight the King of Maui and they defeat him. But it's called the Battle of the Red-Mouthed Guns because there are cannons and muskets being fired from both sides.
Both sides.
Yes.
Both sides.
King of Maui got himself some guns.
Okay, so he's
innovative. He got beat by guns, and he wasn't going to let it happen again.
Yeah. Okay, so Kamehameha has friends, or at least associates, who are providing him guns and cannons and whatnot. But also, the King of Maui has friends or associates or business contacts or whatever who are providing him with weaponry.
Yes, exactly.
And yeah. Ooh, okay. So, okay, that escalated fast.
Yeah, and now we have an arms race.
Yeah. Okay, so Kamehameha wins the fight. I mean, he's the one we're doing the podcast episode about, right?
Mm-hmm. But although I will say that, like, the more I learned about Kahekili, the King of Maui, the more I liked him.
Okay, fair. Yeah, yeah. So we've got badass versus badass.
So how did he get the guns? How did the King of Maui get the guns?
Yeah. So Kamehameha wins the fight. But where does the King of Maui get these guns? They're both exploiting or leveraging their contacts with Europeans. So Kahekili, the King of Maui, he's made a deal with an English merchant named William Brown, which is like the most generic English name ever.
Just like John Young and Isaac Davis and William Brown.
That's okay. Yeah, that's his name. And William Brown is the captain of the 30-gun frigate Butterworth, which is that the name of a type of syrup for pancakes? Anyway,
I mean,
whatever.
for this being the most badass ship in this entire story, 30 cannons frigate. I mean, you didn't have anything better than Butterworth for the name.
Okay, I mean, let's be fair. Butter makes a lot of things better. Butter makes a lot of things more worthy. You have pancakes, but then you have pancakes with butter. Okay, anyway. So Captain Brown gets into the harbor at Honolulu. Like, from his point of view, he discovered it. From the point of view of the Hawaiians, he's like, okay, you showed up. And Brown makes an agreement with the King of Maui, with Kahekili. And so Kahekili, the King of Maui, ceded the island of Oahu and maybe the island of Kauai to Brown in return for military aid. Okay, so you cede your island. What does that mean?
It's very vague.
Yeah, it's kind of vague, and it might have meant different things to different people. Whatever. Anyway,
sure, you can put your flag here. That's fine. Give me the cannons.
Oh yeah, flag. Yeah, it's a piece of cloth. Okay, yay, la 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 la, bright colors, yay. Okay, yeah, festive. Okay. On the one hand, we've got Kamehameha, who's getting assistance from George Vancouver, who lands on the Big Island in 1793. And this guy named John Young interprets.
Yeah, John Young from the boatswain from the Eleanor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he's there. Yeah. So Vancouver, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Vancouver shows up and he has a ship. And he says, hey, we've got this guy Young, we've got this guy Davis. We can bring you home. I've got a ship, I'm heading in that direction. What do you think they say?
I mean, if I'm John Young and Isaac Davis and George Vancouver shows up and is like, hey guys, don't you want to go back to working on a ship, do whaling or whatever you're doing, being a merchantman in England? No way. I think I'll stay here and be a prince in Hawaii. This is actually way better.
I don't blame them. Yeah. They do indeed say, we're staying here.
George Vancouver is a good local history for me. He's the guy who named Mount Rainier after his buddy Peter Rainier. He's a big part of Washington history because he discovered the town of Vancouver, Washington, and also Vancouver, British Columbia, and the Puget Sound, all that stuff. So he's a big Pacific Northwest exploration hero. But in 1793, he left the Pacific Northwest and went to Hawaii. As many of us do.
Yeah. And, both the Pacific Northwest and Hawaii are nice places. So, yeah. So, what does Kamehameha get out of this? Well, he gets them to explain Western-style shipbuilding technology. They give him plans, and also, while this is going on, Kamehameha and the Hawaiians are really making it big in the trade of sandalwood. And this is sandalwood. It's wood from a particular type of tree, iliahi in Hawaiian. And okay, I have to say, as me, I know sandalwood as a particular type of incense. It's got this particular scent to it. But the Hawaiians had a lot of sandalwood trees growing on their islands, and China was really into sandalwood because it's good for a lot of things. It's good for medicine. It's good for incense. It's good for carved objects. And Kamehameha recognizes that, oh, hey, this is an opportunity. And he recognizes the strategic position of Hawaii in Pacific trade routes. And so they're making it big,
Yeah.
And
kind of put they literally were not on any maps 15 years ago, and now they're positioned as a really good hub between the West Coast and China and the other islands, right?
Yeah.
They're the only thing within X number of 100 miles. You got to stop there, and hey, we've got stuff to trade.
And they're using this new technology, and this is things like iron and nails, new to the Hawaiians. And this improves the lives of Hawaiian people and their national infrastructure as well.
Yeah. And so it is an arms race, but it is also Kamehameha and the King of Maui. They're both kind of leveraging this trade to improve the lives of their people. And so Hawaii makes a pretty big jump technologically at this point. But there is still this idea that at some point we're going to have to fight it out because one of us is going to unify this island, because unifying Hawaii now is extremely more valuable because there is all of this trade, and right now it's being divided. But if you can unify this, you can monopolize this trade. There's a lot more money in conquering Oahu now than there was 15 years ago. So we're gonna have this epic showdown. We've got Kamehameha on one side, we've got Kahekili on the other. They're gonna fight it out for full control of the Hawaiian Islands. And I wish I could tell that story, but in 1794, the King of Maui dies without there being a big showdown. His son, Kalanaʻi he takes over. He's the new King of Maui. But this kid, he's the one that got defeated at the Battle of Kanaloa's Phallus, or the dammed up bodies. He has less foresight, perhaps, than his father. That William Brown guy was hanging around doing kind of what John Young and Isaac Davis were for Kamehameha. And Kalanaʻi he decides that, I don't need to work with these guys. He kills William Brown and tries to force his crew into service.
Oh, how did that work out?
Well, they dumped him overboard. They mutinied and dumped him overboard. He lives, he swims to shore, but they dump him overboard and they sail off. And now that Imperial Star Destroyer Butterworth sails off into the sunset and leaves the story. And that might have been a nice thing to have if you were going to have another battle of roaring guns or roaring fire guns. So, sensing weakness, weak leadership, they just lost their 30-gun frigate. Kamehameha attacks. And in May of 1795, Kamehameha is like, this is my chance for the showdown. I've been building up for this. Their king died. Their competent king died. They've got this kid in here. He's already making mistakes. He's never going to be weaker. This is when I got to go. So
he's good at sensing opportunities.
He is. And he is good at taking advantage of them too, right? Like, what's the story about luck is when opportunity meets preparation, you prepare. And then when the opportunity presents itself, you have to take it. And that's what Kamehameha does in May of 1795. He loads 10,000 guys into 960 war canoes that he has been building this entire time, with the help of these traders and George Vancouver and John Young and Isaac Davis and anybody else who would come to the island to trade with him. He wants to know about their ships, and he's building ships. And the Maui troops meet him on the shores. Kamehameha outmaneuvers them. They fall back and they fall back and they fall back. And the defenders, the new king of Maui, he finds himself suddenly backed up against the Nuʻuanu Pali, which is a big cliff. He gets backed up this mountain until he reaches this cliff, and nowadays you can go there, and it's this big lookout that kind of looks out over the windward side of Oahu. It's like a tourist destination today. It's got these big, beautiful.
I bet it's a nice view. Yeah,
it is. These big, beautiful green vistas. The beach, the volcanic rock, the waves, the surfers are out there. It's cool, but at the time, the reality for the army of Maui was that they were backed up against a 1,000-foot sheer cliff face with Kamehameha's army marching up to fight them. So the king of Maui, he's got cannons, he's got guns, he's got that stuff. So he digs in and they decide this is going to be the battle, right? He's going to put his guns out there. They've got to come up this road. We're going to shoot them on their way up here. We're going to see what happens. And this is when the big battle takes place. Kamehameha's guys, they lead with their cannons. They attack. They've got rifles. But this is the old days, right? This is you shoot with your musket and then you run and you attack with a spear or you've got a spear and a shield, and that is how this battle is fought. There's initial volleys and then there's a charge and there's a big bloodbath. This is another battle of the damned bodies. Kamehameha's
damned. Which sense of damned?
you reader's choice.
Okay.
And the battle
does not bode well.
No, it does not bode well. And Kalanaʻikapule, he's defeated. The Maui troops are defeated. Kamehameha, his guys press forward. They drive the attack and drive these guys back to the cliffs. Now, some of the soldiers of Maui leap to their deaths because they know the battle's over, and they leap to their deaths to avoid being subjects of Maui. The battle is called another name for it is the Battle of the Leaping Anai Fish, because of all the people jumping off of this cliff to kill themselves. Or mullets that leap in the waves. Those that did not leap to their deaths were pushed to their deaths by Kamehameha and his guys. So many of them were driven off the mountain, and many of them jumped. Somewhere around 400 is the estimation. Somewhere between 400 and 800 people die by falling off of this cliff into a pile of, I assume, dead bodies at the bottom. Kalanaʻikapule, he's captured and sacrificed to the gods. And probably because that's what happened with chiefs was, they sacrifice you and then they ate your heart like they did with Captain Cook. I think that's still happening here. And that's it. The battle's over. The Maui army is destroyed. King Kamehameha is now the king of all of these islands, right? He takes Molokai, he takes Lanai. He already owns Hawaii. It makes it a little confusing. Like, the reason it's a little confusing when you talk about the Hawaiian Islands, they say the big island instead of calling it just Hawaii, but it's because he conquered all of these lands for Hawaii. And they all become Hawaii. So the only holdout is Kauai. There's a minor Nope chief there who was very loyal to the king of Maui. He holds out for a while. Kamehameha builds this big fleet to try to take him out, but then his army gets racked with typhoid and there's a storm that kind of decimates his attacking preparations. So in 1810, he's like, and the battle on Oahu was 1795. So 15 years after that, Kauai's still holding out. Kamehameha is like, look, can I make you a deal? Can we make a deal? Can I just make you you can keep your post, you'll be a minor lord, but I'll be the king, whatever. And they agree with that and they join in 1810.
Okay, yeah. So you've still got your realm and we're just going to be this bigger realm that's over you.
Yeah, you join us, we'll cut you in for a percentage of all of this awesome trade that we're doing with the Europeans and the Chinese, and it's going to be better for everybody. We don't have to you don't have to lose a bunch of guys and get sacrificed and have your heart eaten. I don't have to lose a bunch of my guys trying to attack you. We can just end this war and let's just call it. Let's make peace right now. And that sounded good to everybody, and that's what they do. So in 1810, he becomes King Kamehameha of all of the Hawaiian Islands. for his celebration, he takes a tour of every island and travels around. We've talked about Ataturk before, and the Ataturk drank in this bar, and here was his cup. Kamehameha does a grand tour of all of the Hawaiian Islands, and you'll see pictures of him all over the place in Hawaii because he kind of left his mark everywhere that he went. And there's that, they have that kind of reverence for him there of like, oh, Kamehameha was here, and this is so.
Yeah. So he was responsible for creating the nation of Hawaii.
Yeah, the Hawaiian national identity as we know it, right? Because they were all kind of loyal to their individual islands, and he takes over and then by traveling there personally, I think was a great touch to kind of reinforce like, hey, we are all one people. We are all together. I think that's was really effective. He dies in May of 1819. So he lives to be an old man. He dies the ruler of the unified kingdom of Hawaii. And you talked about Mana earlier. He is buried in an unknown location because desecrating bodies or moving bodies was considered was believed to like disrupt your mana. So he was buried in secret by like 3 guys who took the secret to their grave. So he's got a tomb somewhere in the Hawaiian Islands that has never been discovered.
Wow. Yeah. And then undisclosed location.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, it could be anywhere. So, yeah.
It's prime real estate for an adventure novel.
I suppose so. Yeah. Yeah. And so what's his legacy? Well, starting with like I don't know, in a very practical sense, he left behind a whole bunch of kids, maybe as many as 35 kids with a number of different wives,
Mm-hmm. As you do.
As you do. And the royal line continued, and lots of people after him took the name Kamehameha as their like royal name. So you have 5 more Kamehamehas. 4. Anyway, his line ends with the death of Kamehameha the Fifth in 1872. And Hawaii, so he was always alert to opportunities to collaborate with, form partnerships with foreign nations. And, well, Hawaii becomes a state of the United States of America. His Hawaiian kingdom becomes a real force in the Pacific. It controls shipping routes, maintains relationships with foreign powers, and aspires to rival Guangzhou in Canton in China, and the Hawaiian archipelago as a political unit, as a nation, the Hawaiian nation is respected by other nations. And Kamehameha, he makes decisions that he takes advantage of opportunities. And given what he knew at the time were shrewd business decisions and good for his people, and created the nation of Hawaii.
Yeah. And Hawaii becomes a U.S. state in 1959, but even traveling there today in the 21st century, there is a very strong identity of the Hawaiian people as a unified people, and there is a very strong culture there that traces back to these days of Kamehameha and his unification of the islands and his kind of ability to inject this national identity of we are Hawaiians. And that's very powerful, and it still carries on today. All right, so that is King Kamehameha the Great, the unifier of Hawaii. He was badass warrior, a fighter, a strong guy, a physically badass, but he also had a lot of intelligence and foresight to lead his nation into, like, he was a great war hero, but he was also very shrewd and very capable of taking advantage of opportunities every time he saw them and using that to build his kingdom into one of these, like a very dominant power in the region. And that is pretty badass. So we want to say thank you so much, as always, for listening to our show. We really do appreciate it. If you guys have any suggestions for people you want to hear about, or comments, questions, you can always email us anytime. And we do appreciate it when you guys like and subscribe to the show. It really does help us out. So anyway, thank you so much, as always, for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.
Stay badass. Badass of the Week is an iHeartRadio podcast produced by High Five Content. Executive producers are Andrew Jacobs, me, Pat Larish, and my co-host, Ben Thompson. Writing is by me and Ben. Story editing is by Ian Jacobs, Brandon Phibbs. Mixing and music and sound design is by Jude Brewer. Special thanks to Noel Brown at iHeart. Badass of the Week is based on the website badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions, ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like the podcast, subscribe, follow, listen, and tell your friends and your enemies if you want, as we'll be back next week with another one. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.